All right, lads, welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball. Me and Shane back here once again. Shane, what's the crack?
All good. Nothing really to complain about at the moment. We'll do the complaining when we talk about the football in a couple of minutes now. The only thing I really watched over the weekend was Limerick put on a clinic in the hurling against Cork, and then Liverpool played a friendly against Brighton on Monday night. That there wasn't a single brain cell on the pitch in the red jersey, but
Yeah,
oh, it
they're on
was
the
it was a
beach
tough
anyway,
watch
sure.
now. Oh, it's outrageous, absolutely outrageous. But we'll get into the important football bits in a couple of minutes now. But
Yeah, so yeah, similarly, I don't know what did I look at over the weekend. Can't really remember to be honest. I didn't really watch a whole lot because we were trying to enjoy the weather a little bit and get out and around because there's literally no point in watching like United Premier League games at all. So I didn't really bother doing that on Friday. And then yeah, Saturday I was gonna go to the Carlow game, but it's a trek enough to Mullingar. So I just said did ended up doing something.
you were at the League of
But
Ireland game
yeah,
Friday, were you?
right? No, I wasn't. I
I
was
thought you went to Pats. Thought you went to Pats or something. Don't know where I got that idea from.
No, I didn't. I didn't bother. I actually just was down. Oh, the picture of the crowd I sent you was
Yeah.
down like at the barge here in Dublin, like where you just go to
Oh,
everyone's
okay.
on the canal drinking like and stuff outside the pub. But this yeah, that was the big crowd. I didn't end up going to any games or anything like that. But yeah, sure. Look, the next one for me now is Saturday week. I'm going to the quarterfinal, the Leinster quarterfinal of the URC, so that'll be good against Scarlets.
Yeah.
Hope to get the win there. Got some nice tickets, so that's the next game for me. But unfortunately, won't make the Carlow game on Saturday. I don't think, even though it's the big one against Leash. Need to win it to secure a place in the Joe McDonagh final. But I have family events on all over the weekend. It's that time of year, so
All it
I'll have to.
is.
I'll be closely checking the score.
Yeah.
To that one. Luckily, we won on the weekend against Westmeath, so still in with a good shout, but let's get into the football here. So we're going to talk about last week. We previewed the two finals, gave our predictions, chatted in depth about the form and stuff leading up. So we'll talk about now the games, or I suppose more focused on the winners and both of the games, but how they both kind of went. So you want to start with the FA Cup if you want. I'll I'll throw out just one thing before we start. I'll throw it to you then. It's just the quote that I mentioned last week I think is even more prevalent now.
Yeah.
It's just a brilliant quote now because I thought last week it was good and we are kind of giving our opinion on it and like how we thought Glasner was a great manager and that he could fulfill what he said. So what he said after City beat them in the league 5-2 was that if we meet again, you can't play in this system because we will solve it. And he did exactly that. He marked his word and they won 1-0 against City in the FA Cup final. Palace, first time winning a major trophy in their history. What did you make of it?
I thought they played the game to perfection. They knew obviously City are a better team than them. And the way they played it was just exceptional. I thought they were brilliant. Like there's one stat that jumped out to me as well. It was that Ruben Diaz completed more passes himself than Palace did it as a team. He completed 129, Palace completed 126.
All
But
right.
they didn't want the ball. They wanted City to have the ball. They wanted City coming at them. Dean Henderson had the game of his life. The whole back five kind of stood up as well. Munoz was unbelievable. I thought he was absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant. And Mateta then is I don't think I've ever seen a man hold the ball up as well as he did in a long, long time. Even, especially for the goal where he held him off and then fed
yeah,
Munoz. They played it perfectly and it worked out so well for him. And it was fitting that it was Eze who scored because the man has been on fire for the last month and a bit. Bar that penalty against Newcastle, he hadn't put a foot wrong. And I thought they were deserved winners. They went out with a game plan. I know they like City had over 75% of the ball. I don't think that's ever really in any game plan, but they didn't
yeah.
want the ball. They let City have it, and City just, they didn't really look like scoring outside of the two or three chances they had where Dean Henderson saved it, and of course the penalty.
The
That
penalty
I
was the big
still,
one. Yeah,
for as long as I live, I will never understand why Haaland isn't taking that penalty.
it's absolutely ridiculous. Like if you're on the pitch, you should be the one to take the penalty. Like if you're if you're going to be fit enough to play, then there shouldn't be any question that you're not sure about like
Mm.
taking a penalty. Like that doesn't make any sense, especially considering he's their striker. He's been their main man, and like the possession in general. like before Palace scored, City had 88% possession when they hit
Yeah,
them for that goal, and in the entire game, City had 78.3%, which is outrageous. They had 23
yeah,
shots, to Palace's seven, and I thought one really interesting stat was Chris Richards. He had the most clearances in the game. He had 12
12.
clearances.
Yeah,
Like every time the ball came in, he was literally just there. It seemed like he did exactly what needed to be done. They put on a clinic in box defending. They did everything to perfection, and Munoz was one I highlighted too. I thought tirelessly up and down that wing, he broke out a
points.
number of times as well, and for that assist too, like just unbelievable.
Absolutely incredible. And like as you said, he was non-stop. Like he was getting forward when the rare times Palace got forward, and he was back before anyone knew it then as well. He
Yeah,
just did not stop running. And even when Mark Gay went off injured and to bring on Jefferson Lerma, who's obviously a centre mid, they'd bring
yeah,
him on into centre back when they were being peppered. And it was actually like it was still Mark Gay, just with a different number on his back. Like I thought they were absolutely brilliant to a man. Like the XG, I think is quite funny. It's
mm,
2.31 to 0.74.
yeah,
Um, 23 shots to seven, as you said. It was Man City did everything but put the ball in the net. And Crystal Palace, I think if City had scored, Palace would have just broken and gotten another one.
yeah,
I don't think there was any other result in a Palace win coming out of that game there on Saturday with the way it fell.
yeah. I think it was meant to be, and the fans were
Yeah,
unbelievable. And I think if we do take into account the penalty as well, like that's a 0.8, I think XG for that. So, like, if you take that out of it, obviously you can't, but like it's a little bit more even. It shows
1.51.
that,
Yeah,
yeah. So basically, if you take away that shot and that penalty, then City had 22 shots with only 1.5 xG. So it shows they weren't taking
yeah,
that high
good
quality
shot.
chances. But yeah, the penalty was the real turning point because I think if City did score later on, like as you said, I feel like Palace could have still hit them on the break as the game wore down.
Yeah,
But if I think if they scored at that point, it could have all changed like it did in the Premier League when Palace were 2-0 up and City got one back pretty early and then they just
yeah.
dominated. So I think that resolve, the longer you go without scoring, it makes it harder. But yeah, I think Palace were great value for their win.
100%. Did you think it was a red card for Dean Henderson? Because I definitely do.
Yeah, I'd say I think it probably should have been a red card, but I can understand how, like, I think a lot of people were up in arms because of like the fact that nothing happened. But if they didn't think it was a red, it was outside the box, so they can't give a yellow and they can't give a free. So obviously they determined that Haaland was not going to be, clean through. But I don't see how you can think that because it would have been an open goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it would have been a red. It should have been a red, but I think, look, the small teams deserve a bit of luck sometimes, and I think he well earned his luck with what he did in the rest of the game. So
Mm.
sometimes these things go your way, and City have had plenty of things down the years. So I think it's about time Palace got something there for
Yeah,
themselves.
100%. I think as well, like, I know we've mentioned him a bit now, but I didn't actually realize that Munoz has 6 goals and 7 assists this season.
Oh yeah, flying
Um,
it.
he's quietly gone under the radar for the first half of the season, and since January, then he's just become such a vital cog in this team. Himself, Wharton, Eze, Mateta are all
Yeah.
like I could talk about Adam Wharton for weeks. I think he's absolutely incredible what he does in that Palace midfield. He's been such a difference maker since he came back. And then Eze with the form he's on, like he's absolutely excellent. And I think he is Arsenal kind of written all over him. But
Mm,
I really hope he gives them a year where he gets to play in Europe with Palace.
yeah.
Kind of Joe, they're the ones that gave him this chance. He should stay there and give him the year in the Europa League. I know he'll be 27 or 28 at the end of next season then, so it might be too late for him. But
Mm,
I think playing in Europa League with Palace would be more than anything else he could possibly have, I think.
yeah. I think he should do it because I think he should stay there because like inevitably they're going to lose one of those guys
Mm.
because that's just the way it goes with teams like Palace. Even if they do qualify for Europe, often someone does come in and swoop in for them. But I think now they have a lot more leverage. And you've seen what Steve Parish did to Newcastle when they were trying to sign Gay. He made a joke
Mm.
out of him, like, but the way he just kept up in the price and he had no intention of selling Gay. And I think now he has even more leverage to do things like that because they're in Europe and it's just great for a club like Palace to get into something like that. Winning again at the weekend against Wolves, even after winning the cup, you thought they would have appeared a bit hungover, but
Mm.
they did well. 4-2 win, first ever 50-point Premier League season for them. and they could still finish in the top half if other results go their way. So like a brilliant season all in all for them, and it's just really quite fitting that their goal difference is zero right now. 13 wins, 13 draws, and 11 losses, just properly even across the board.
You
It's
know what
just
I mean?
brilliant
That
stuff.
they are definitely losing on the last day because it has to be 13, 13, 12. That's the only way that the
Yeah.
algorithm works. So it has
Unfortunately,
to be.
then the goal difference will be minus, which will,
I know, be
yeah,
fuming over
that'll,
that now, but
yeah, pure age, and that they need to have a
it
proper
kind of
Palace.
it makes more sense if they just draw.
Yeah, it
That
would
that
make a lot more sense, I think. Yeah, get the zero goal difference, and then you can have the everything is kind of still close, but we'll see.
I
Liverpool
think
game on the
just I
weekend
just
anyway.
want to I want to give him one more word to Oliver Glasner because I think the job he's been doing there is
Yeah,
nothing short of exceptional. There's a couple of managers himself. I think Ariola, I think
Hurtsler.
Fabian Hurchler at Brighton. I think the three of them are managers that are going to go to the top in the next 2, 3, or 4 years. I think if like let's say if Pep did leave Man City, then Ariola could very
Hmm.
easily take that City job, I think, or someone like that, and
Yeah,
I think it's great to see that teams like that are in with a fighting chance of now obviously winning silverware, breaking points records, their own point records in the Premier League when the way they started the season as well. Imagine if they played all season the way they finished it as well. They could be pushing into Europe. So
yeah,
just I think the job he's done there with a kind of a limited budget, that he's been backed and they've backed him as all the players have, and it's they've been excellent to watch. And I'm delighted for him.
yeah. I think it's gonna only hopefully expand for them because I think sometimes you see teams get into Europe and they're not ready for it, but I think they've been building nice and slowly, and I think they have a decent team there. So I think if they manage it right and they keep him there, then he'll do a good job. But I do agree. I think another manager I'd throw into that ring is Thomas Frank if he wasn't just so in love with
Mhm.
Brentford. I think
Yeah,
I don't even think he could be pried away from them how much he loves being there and all he does for them. But he's another one in my mind that's just on that level too. But then moving into one final into another, Man United versus Spurs Wednesday night, one of the worst cup finals I've ever watched. Regardless of Spurs winning, like I'm a United fan, so that adds insult to injury. But just as a neutral fan, if you're watching that, you might as well just turn it off. Like it was so bad. There was so little quality in the game. Kind of a similar tactical setup, but just executed worse by both teams than the Crystal Palace and Crystal Palace and City game because Spurs did the Palace on it. They only had
Mm.
3 shots. United had 73% possession. United had 16 shots, but United did worse than City did, and Spurs did worse than Palace did, but they were still the winners in the end. It was just really bad. What did you make of it?
it was clearly a game between the 16th and 17th best teams in the Premier League, and the
Yeah.
fact that it was a European final says a whole lot about it. I thought the first half an hour was actually it was good to watch the first half an hour,
Hmm.
and the ball went out for a throw in, and they all just forgot what to do afterwards. And the rest of the game then was just it was a shocker to watch. It really was. It was
Yeah.
boring. Nothing happened. As you said, United 73% of the ball and did nothing with it. They had
Yeah.
16 shots and created a goal there, created an XG of one.
One. Yeah.
Like that's criminal behavior.
And
Like,
Spurs only had 1 shot on target,
yeah,
and the reason their XG was 1.03 is because it bounced
Brennan
into
Johnson
an
couldn't
open
miss.
goal. So, like, apart from that, they didn't do a thing. And the way they played now, in fairness, like I've always said that Ange wasn't going to change his ways, and I said already after the game that commending him that he had changed his ways and he did what needed to be
Mm.
done in that game. He knew that United were there to make a mistake, which they did. He knew that they had to take that chance, and then all they did in the second half was just time waste, foul players, roll around on the ground. They didn't want to score again at all. They just knew that United weren't going to break them down, and you have to commend him for that because he knew what needed to be done. He did it, and now he has his trophy. So
Yeah.
that's all there is to it, really.
That midfield three they had, I thought were exceptional. I wouldn't usually be Basuma's biggest fan, but I thought he was very, very good at what you're saying there, breaking things up, kind
Yeah,
of.
and just slowing everything down,
Yeah, the
fouling,
way,
acting the maggot.
the way Romero had Harry Kane, or not Harry Kane, Harry Maguire rattled as
Yeah,
well for the
yeah.
last 10 minutes. Harry Maguire was like, if the game went on for another 2 minutes, Maguire would have walked,
He
like
would
he
have,
would have been
he
sent
would have
off.
headbutted.
Yeah, like
Like,
if his head was going to explode from the way Romero just kept winding him up and winding him up.
I don't know why
I think,
he was given into that though. Like that's what he
yeah,
wants you to do. It doesn't make any sense
even
to be behaving
like
like that.
the foul at the end that pretty much sealed it was
So
Maguire fouling
stupid.
Romero, and
So
it was so
stupid.
silly. Just
Yeah.
don't do it. Like you're an experienced player. You're better than that, for want of a better way of putting it. Like he is normally better than reaching
Yeah,
getting to that level.
he's never like that.
No, and for to let Romero, like you, surely the last thing said to him out of the dressing room is, "Don't let Romero get you," because he's
Yeah.
going to try. And they straight away, Maguire, he had one goal, Maguire, and Maguire was straight away rattled.
Yeah.
And I think if that kind of sums up the whole game, really, between the two of them, because Spurs got exactly what they wanted. They got their goal from the United mistake, as you said, and then they just set in. They had no
Yeah.
intention of doing anything else. Even their substitutions, bringing on Kevin Danzo for Brendan Johnson, like, he kind of went
When I
going to a
saw
back
that, I
five
was
to
like,
match
"Oh
up.
my, holy God, this was even worse." Like, but I think like the Maguire thing, I think that was from when Romero just blatantly dived, and then
Yeah,
Maguire was trying to buy something similar, and Romero was winding him up. Then, like, they were diving the whole game. Why are you giving in to one guy whose only idea out there is to wind people up? Like
yeah.
that's what he does. So I don't know why he gave into that, but that just it just sums up, as you said, it sums everything up for United's whole season, not just last night. Like,
Oh,
and
100%, yeah.
as I've said to you since, like I've definitely been disappointed way more in other finals. Like I was really disappointed last night with the level of performance because it just wasn't acceptable. But I've been way more disappointed other times because this year has just been so abysmal that they actually didn't deserve to win anything. And they didn't deserve to cap off this season with a win because that's just pure false hope like last year. They deserve to be at rock bottom now because of what they put in and the effort because it was really poor from a lot of guys out there. And some of the things like I don't know why after 45, 50 minutes Mount wasn't taken off because he's
Hmm.
not to be played and like if you're winning or you're drawn that's fine, he's there to win duels and win the ball high up the pitch, but he wasn't providing anything else. Garnacho needed to come on earlier, Xerxes needed to come on earlier, and they waited way too long to do that. I don't agree that Amram waited way too long to do that. He made the wrong decision there. And then also by piling people into the box, like they only put Maguire up top for the last like 5 minutes. Like okay, whatever about that. But earlier on in the game, bring Manu on or something and say you play right behind Highland or right behind Xerxes and the two of you get in the box together. Because we seen the very first time United put two people into the box, Spurs got overloaded or didn't know what to do, and Luke Shaw arrived with a header that he should have
Yeah,
scored. And that's the first time that they put an extra body in, and that was Luke Shaw just taking it upon himself. So there's some really bad tactical decisions there. Obviously, the players are not physically capable of playing that system. The guys that stood out to me, to be honest, were Dorgu put in a great shift. He worked very hard, and Yarrow as well. And those are like probably the two most physically capable players on the team. So it shows how much physicality matters. And United are just far from physically capable at this level. They need so many more strong, physical, healthy, fit players, and they just don't have that.
100%. But like even with the way the first half finished, and I thought Bruno was really poor, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on
Yeah,
that as well.
yeah,
Like at half time, take Mount off, push Bruno up to where Mount was, because clearly
yeah,
he's losing his battle as one of the two in midfield, and bring Mainu on, or
yeah, exactly.
bring on Ugarte then and sit him in beside Casemiro, and then just have Bruno, Ahmad, and Hoyland as your top three then, and kind of see what they can do there, and give that 10 minutes. And if that doesn't work, then you bring on Zerki, they said, because Hoyland clearly
He was
wasn't the
so,
answer.
oh my God.
You
He's
bring
more
on,
interested in like getting fouled than doing anything
yeah,
else. It's
and
just
then
crazy. What? It's,
like his substitutions were mad as well. Like his first sub, I'm pretty sure was Dallo for Mazraoui.
mm-mm. No,
No,
that was after the Xerxes and Garnacho one.
okay,
But I was shouting for Dallo to come on since like 50 minutes to Ash. I was
yeah,
saying he needs because Mazraoui was bet like he couldn't keep going and he can't cross the ball. Not that Dallo can do it very well, but
yeah.
Mazraoui really can't. But yeah, I don't. I agree though. The subs were ridiculous and the timing
Like,
of them anyway.
yeah, like we were talking last week, and we were talking about the injuries and which one was going to make more of a difference. And if you just drop someone in and said, which of these teams isn't starting with a first choice midfield, you wouldn't have said it was Spurs with the way that their three in midfield played, considering like
Mm,
what they were missing. They were missing their most creative players. I'm not going to go into it again. It's on our TikTok
yeah,
page if you want to see it, but. Like, if Joe, no Madison, no Kulusevski, they're playing Sarr in the attacking role. He's the fella to put the cross in. And then
Yeah,
it was Bruno who lost the ball that led to that attack as well.
lost it
Like,
twice in quick succession.
yeah, I just couldn't believe the lack of intensity and the lack of what I perceived, the lack of fight from United it was appalling to watch. Now, I just
Yeah,
obviously delighted, but kind of, Joe, when you dig down into it, you kind of see that there's, there's big issues there. And as you said,
yeah.
this really is rock bottom.
Yeah, it is. I was talking to another Liverpool fan that I work with today, and like he's kind of similar to you. That he's like, oh yeah, like I enjoyed them losing, obviously, but he's like, I actually have not like gone too hard on my friends who are United fans because he's like, this is so bad. Like it's
Mm.
actually seriously an issue. How bad they are and everything that's going on. That it's literally, yeah, I almost feel like you don't even need to rub it in anymore because it's
Yeah.
so bad. But
But then even
like,
like the quotes after the game from like you don't need your players coming out like Garnacho with his quotes after is so petulant. Bruno
uh,
saying that if the club want to sell me, they can sell me. Like that's not the time to say that. You need to kind of let
yeah.
the dust settle. Don't
I think
coward.
with
And
I
I
think with the Bruno one, in fairness, the way that is pulled out is like that he had been. I think they asked him like about what the future holds, and he said he wants to stay at the club and he
oh
wants
yeah.
to fight for like the future. But if the club decide to sell him, basically saying that he doesn't want to leave. But the Garnacho one is just ridiculous, like purely childish,
Mm.
and saying that we didn't. Oh, he said, "Oh, we didn't truly beat anyone. It's been a shit season," and that he played every game up until the final. So I don't know why he didn't play now. Like, just get on. You need to go because that mentality isn't going to work
No,
at
like
all.
I do agree with you in that sense, but I also think it was so strange to see Mount straight in to the starting lineup for the final. Like I did think it would be Garnacho when I was kind of trying to put a team
But
together
you
in my
can't
head.
play Garnacho and Ahmad there. I think you give away
Yeah,
too
it's
much. So I had
yeah.
no issue with that because I thought Mount gives that kind of defensive work that Garnacho doesn't do. So I don't know, unless the only way it would have worked, in my opinion, is that if Garnacho played on the right 10 and Ahmad played right wing back, but then you're in
Yeah.
trouble too because you're going to get caught out defensively. So I don't know, but I think yeah, I do like Garnacho too off the bench because I think he has talent. He's done things that like his record speaks for itself. It's similar to what Ronaldo's was when he was at that age at United. So players do come into their own as they age, but
Yeah.
this whole mentality that he does honestly think that everything revolves around him, that's not going to work in the future. And if Amram is to succeed, he needs to get rid of the likes of him. But yeah, we spend enough time on United anyway. We'll get into them over the summer. I'm sure there'll be plenty of incomings and outgoings. But well done to Spurs. They get their first trophy in 17 years, and well done to Palace, their first major trophy in their history. Two teams that waited a long time, so it's nice for their fan base.
Hmm.
And it's nice to get one after a long time. So well done to both of them. But let's move into the NFL then. All right, lads, we have a guest on again this week to chat about the NFL. So we've got Tomás Hurley. He's only from over the road from myself, and I'm a Scorty man. I'm from Carlow, so we're pretty close. He has a master's in journalism, so he's well able to write. He's well able to give his peace of mind, and he loves the NFL and the NBA. So it's a pleasure to have him on. Tomás, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, James. Thanks for having me on, lads. Yeah, so my name is Tomás Hurley, as James already said. Menascarty down below in the sunny southeast of Wexford. I've been a fan of the NFL really since 2014, maybe a bit beforehand. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, so the heartbreak is continuing every single year. Poor Patrick Mahomes has me in a headlock. He's had me in a headlock since he was drafted. And yeah, I'm someone I've tried to get my own digital platform off the ground, but I'm only back from Canada now, so I suppose I'm trying to get myself back up and running. While I try to get a career out of this. So yeah, thanks for having me on, lads.
No bother
My
at all.
pleasure to have you on. Ravens fan is an interesting one. We haven't had that
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah,
It's nice.
it's an interesting one because my dad. So it was. I can remember the day. It was the Super Bowl in I think 2012. It was the 49ers versus the Ravens, and my parents would have lived in San Francisco for a number of years. So my dad would have been a 49ers fan in the heyday of the Joe Montana Jerry Rice connection. So out of pure spite. When Dad was going for the 49ers, I decided that I was going to support the Ravens, and that's kind of just stuck then. So, I went through a period of, a bit of up and down with Joe Flacco, and then, we were lucky enough to get Lamar in 2018, and ever since then it's skyrocketed. Now, it hasn't landed in the championship for us yet, but, you know, it'll come soon. Oh, well, I hope so anyway.
Yeah, you're onto a decent team anyway. I think you've had a lot of, although not Super Bowl success, I think you've witnessed a good bit of regular season and some big playoff wins throughout those years. So not a bad one now, in fairness. I think moving into the 49ers, who supported, we're going to talk about their quarterback. So he's after getting his big contract. It was a bit of a, I feel like there's always something in the off season with the 49ers, and I think they've done, whether you believe or not that this is right that he got paid, they did the business well, in my opinion. They didn't drag it out, and they made their decision and they did what they wanted to do. So looking at the deal, Brock Purdy's on a 5-year, $265 million deal, so it's 53 million per year. Um, that ranks him the seventh highest in the NFL. So he's around the level of Goff, who's on 53 a year, Tua 53.1. Interestingly, slightly above Lamar, who's on 52. The structure is one that I kind of looked at and I thought, okay, they've backloaded this. I think there's 100 million guaranteed, and it's early on, as the cap hit is around 25-30 million first couple of years. Then when you're getting close to the late 2020s, it's 57.6 million, then 72.5 million cap hit, and then 64.5 million cap hit. So they've backloaded this contract probably with the hope that the cap gets there. Personally, I wouldn't have paid him this much, but I feel like they needed to. What do you think of that, Shane? What do you think of it when you first came across it?
I think it's a massive deal, and I agree with you. I don't think he's worth what they're paying him. But when you look at, he was asking for 60 million or 63 million when they went into negotiations. They've gotten him down to 52 million or 53 million a year. So Brock has probably done a serious job in this himself, where he's gone in like, oh, I'm going to ask for an outrageous amount, and they'll bring me down to an amount that I feel I'm worth then. I think the way they've structured, as you were just saying there, is a massive win for him. With it's 41 million for the first year, 46 for the second year, 27 and a half for the third year. And then, as you said, it gets high then. So kind of gives them 3 years to try and go and build a team that can win them a Super Bowl, and then start rebuilding then again from with his back 3 years. And he'll be pushing 30 then as well. So he's only coming into his prime when they start to pay him the big bucks. I think, as you said, they had to pay him, but I honestly can't believe they've given him this much money as well at the same time.
Mm. Yeah, Tomás, what did you make of it?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of points. I can understand what you're saying about the amount of money that he's getting, but then if you look at the other quarterbacks, Party is 26, 25, 26, we'd say. So if we look at the other quarterbacks that from that in that age group, we'd say 26, 27. You have Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts. They're all around that pay grade. Now, Jalen Hurts actually is out of all of those, Jalen Hurts, gets the least amount of money, which is ironic because he's the only one of those that has a Super Bowl ring to his name. But it makes sense from the 49ers. I mean, listen, like they've brought stability to the position. You see now with teams like, for example, New Orleans, who next year they're hoping to be so bad to the point that and Archie Manning will declare that they'll be able to land him and he'll be their franchise quarterback for this foreseeable. Um, Teams, there is kind of an issue with certain teams with quarterbacks. For San Francisco locking Purdy gives them that stability for at least the next 5 years. Now, in fairness to Purdy, like he came in as he's Mr. Irrelevant. Well, if anything, now he's Mr. Relevant because over the past 3 years, Purdy has his first year he started 5 games, won 5 in a row, and then got to the AFC Championship game, and then year two, sorry, yeah, year two was the exact same thing. Except full year as a starter, 4,000 yards passing, 31 touchdowns, 11 receptions. Really showed what he can do in this Shanahan offense. And then obviously, look, last year I think was a rare outlier. I think you look at the amount of injuries across the board on that 49ers offense. McCaffrey was pretty much gone all year. Ayuk, who's I would say is their best receiver, who would have been their best receiver. He did his ACL and he was gone for the year. Debo was up and down, and I think getting 49ers getting rid of Debo was a smart move as well. So it kind of opens a bit more cap space for him as well. But there's room for growth there. I think they have pieces like Ricky Pierce. So, I think they drafted. I can't remember the name of the receiver they drafted this in this. I think it was the second or third round this year. They were very high on him. They're looking. I think it's a decent move. I think it's cap friendly. It's not too expensive considering the current market. And as Shane said, it does give the chance for them to kind of develop and build a team around Party for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to note that the stability is an important thing because certain
Mm.
teams, like you mentioned, the Saints, you can't always rely on the draft. Like, even as you mentioned, Archie Manning, their hope is that he would declare, and there's no even guarantee that players will do this now with the NAL money that's to be made. And also, you're never guaranteed that a quarterback is going to hit from the draft as well. So, I suppose it is a smart move in terms of he has been good. He has got them to kind of dizzy heights already in his first few years, much above what they expected of him, drafting him very last in the draft. Now, the only issue I have is that last year, although there was a lot of injuries, it kind of gave more fuel to the fire that he is kind of a player that needs elite talent around him to excel. Like last year, I think the injuries across the board, and this year they have less proven weapons than they did. Now, that could work for them perfectly fine if he gets into a nice rhythm with them. Jordan Watkins was the guy they drafted in the fourth round. Then, as you mentioned, Pearsall, I think trading Debo probably was the right thing, but they've gone all in really with McCaffrey again, trading away Jordan Mason. You're in a difficult position there where if McCaffrey does go down, which all signs to me personally would point towards him going down again. That's a horrendous injury that he had. It just makes it a lot more question marks, and I think hindsight will be 2020 with this because in a few years' time he could have created an excellent connection with some of these young guys, and it'll be great. But another side of things, it might go awry and people will be questioning how much they paid for him. But I suppose that's also the chance that you have to. It's I don't know. I think also another big deal was Kittle getting paid this year, so he's the highest paid tight end in
Mm.
football. For 4 years, 76.4 million. And he's 32 at the moment. Tomás, did you have any thoughts on that deal as well, tying him in at such a kind of an older age?
I think again it's stability. I think Kittle is going to be like probably the main target in the passing game. Well, I suppose you never know. I am a big Ayuk fan. I think he's a fantastic route runner. I think he gives you a different alternative. He can take you in the short routes. He can go around. He can take you up the field. I think all three levels he's good. But yeah, Kittle is your safety valve, and I think in this Shanahan offense, I do think the safety valve is important because for all of the complexities that involved in the motions and everything that he runs, whether it's the tight end run or whether it's the tight end moves in or the wide receiver moves, I do think that when you have someone that can just run a 5 yard curl and just sit in the zone, similar enough to the way Kelsey works for Mahomes, that you need that as a quarterback. And I think we probably will see Kittle's best season in a long time this year because I think he is going to be force fed the ball. But I'm interested to see what happens this season because I do think, and I don't know if this is a rogue shout here, but because I know that they have done well as a tandem together, but the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era as a head coach GM, that could come crashing down if things don't pick up soon for San Francisco. I mean, yet they are going to try rebuild, but you're looking at an offensive line that is relatively old. As you said yourself there, Jed, Kittle is 32 years of age. He's not getting any younger. Now there is still a good bit of football in him. He's rarely hurt, so there is a lot of football in him. But I'm just interested to see if there is any more if there is if there's further aggression from the 49ers, especially when the division is so weak now. I mean, Seattle they traded Geno Smith, they traded away DK Metcalf, they got rid of Tyler Lockett. And then Arizona is still in the rebuilding phase, and you
Mm.
never really know what the Rams are going to give you. I think if they don't win the division this year, I do think it could be the end for Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Now that could, as I said, that could be a bit rogue, but I'm very curious to see how much more patience they have. They either get to the conference championship or they just don't make the playoffs. There's
Yeah,
the consistency doesn't really exist there. So I would be interested to see if they do look to kind of change things up if things go a bit pear shaped in this offseason or next year. But we'll see how it
yeah.
goes.
I think it was like the early 2000s, the last time that they either didn't make the AFC Championship game or didn't miss the playoffs. They never have a middle ground. Like you said,
No.
it's one or the other. So it'll be interesting to see what level they get. Personally, I fancy the Rams for that division a lot. I think what they did was smart this off season. But again, some of their players are older, so injuries can play a part there too, as it can. I think for me, the big thing now is Trent Williams staying fit as well, because the production dropped off at times with different role players out. But every time Trent Williams has been out, Purdy's production has just fell off the map, and the Niners have been abysmal whenever he's not on the field. So he's the most important for me, and he's getting older as well. So I think they need to maximize the next year or two with him. But let's throw it then to someone who hasn't been paid. This is another big story. It's Trey Hendrickson. So there's one with the Niners. There's always one up in the air, but they always seem to deal with it in the right way. The Bengals are the opposite. There's always about five up in the air, and they never seem to deal with
Yeah.
any of them properly. It's it's just mind blowing the way that they've handled this situation. A couple of quotes that stood out to me massively is, first of all, Hendrickson, with his statement about a week ago, he said that rather than using collaboration to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating. And he noted that they've been eagerly awaiting a solution, and it's hard to do when there's no discussion and an evident lack of interest. So that shows his opinion on the situation. He's extremely frustrated. But then for the Browns, to comment, or the Bengals to comment on this and say, I think some of it is on him to be happy at some point, and if he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. You can't just tell someone to be happy with the amount of money you're offering them when they're clearly one of the best players at their position. Last year led the league with 17.5 sacks, Pro Bowl last 4 seasons. He doesn't owe them anything. They got him for 4 years, 60 million deal initially, which is outrageously good. And my opinion is that they
Hmm.
should pay him. But Shane, what do you think on this?
They have to pay him. It's simple as that. You can't let someone of his talent and productivity just turn around and walk away or have to trade him somewhere else and make another team far, far stronger. Like Miles Garrett's after getting 40 million a year there. Like I'm not saying give him that because I do think that's an outrageous contract they've given Miles Garrett as well. But he's only on 15 million a year at the moment, or in around, I think it's 15.8 million a year at the moment. You need to be adding 10 million to that at least. You can't just say,
Yeah, at
"Oh, we're
least.
giving you this now. Be happy and deal with it." Like as you said at the top, they always have issues. They had the same with Lamar Chase going into last summer as well, and I know they got there in the end, and they gave him a lot of money too. But they just seem to cause themselves so many issues. There's always something going on with them, and they never seem to work it out properly. Everyone seems upset before it gets fixed.
Yeah, and it's not good for morale to have that issue floating out there. And they still have the same thing with their front office of paying each other. Like, even looking at their draft picks this year, they picked Shamar Stewart with the 17th pick, and he still hasn't practiced yet because they can't iron out the details in his rookie contract.
Yeah.
Like, over a small bonus, I believe it is. It's not confirmed what it is, but he didn't like participate in minicamp. He still hasn't practiced because he's not going to practice till he signs, and it's reportedly over some kind of small camp bonus. What do you think of their overall carry on here in the Bengals front office, Tomás?
I think the Bengals are shooting themselves in the foot here now, to be honest, because again, they have a history of being cheap, right? So like they're if you look at the NFLPA always does a survey at the end of the season, and I don't know if you pay much heed to that, but the Bengals always rate last when it comes to facilities for the players. So it was an indication on that front alone that there's no investment into the actual standards that the Bengals set for their own practice facilities, arena, etc. And again, it's like as you said, they back themselves into a corner and then throw a load of money at players. I mean, look, Hendrickson is someone I think you have to pay him. The problem the Bengals now have is that they can't afford to pay him. So they have 26 million in cap space at the moment, and they gave. I have no problem with Jamar Chase getting a big contract because listen, Jamar Chase, triple crown winner, he is him, right? He is the I think he is probably he's my best. He's the top receiver in my opinion in the league at the moment. Um, my problem would probably lie with them giving T Higgins so much money. To be honest, as I do
Mm.
love T Higgins, But T Higgins has Trey Hendrickson's money, right? Because I was looking into it today. So over the past 5 years, since 2020, Trey Hendrickson has the third most sacks in the NFL, behind, as Shane said, Myles Garrett, who's on 40 million a year, and TJ Watt, who's on 28 million a year, who's also in a bit of a not as much of a standoff as Hendrickson, but there is ongoing communication between the Steelers and Watt about a new contract for him. He counted for almost half of the sacks that the Bengals accumulated last year, 48.6% with his 17 and a half sacks. They had 36 in total. And like I
Nice.
think you have to pay him. But as I said, I don't. The Bengals can't afford him. They knew T Higgins wasn't going to play on the franchise tag. I think it was, to be honest, the idea of tagging him and not trading him was kind of silly. There's teams needed a receiver. You could have got at least draft capital out of someone like New England, who went
Yeah,
off and got Stephon Diggs. You could have got draft capital out of New England for him. He would be their bona fide number one receiver. But instead, you're giving 116 million over 4 years to a number two receiver. And like as I said, it kind of I think it sets a precedent that the Bengals care more about their offense than their defense because over the last couple of years they've let key players go. Like Jesse Bates was an absolute savage of a free safety for them, and now he's
Hmm.
balling out in Atlanta. So it's kind of like they don't really help themselves. But to be honest, I don't see him. I don't see him playing. I'd say if anything is going to happen, he'll be traded. Washington apparently are very, very interested in trade them if things do come together where the Bengals do seriously want to move them. I'd love that move. I think they have a real need for an edge rusher,
yeah,
and it would fit the 4-3 scheme that Dan Quinn runs. Um, but yeah, I think he's been fobbed off. I think it's not fair on him. A player of his quality shouldn't be asked to play on a $15 million a year contract when someone like Micah Parsons, who is equally as good on his franchise tag, is 24 million. So like
yeah.
being asked to play for peanuts in comparison to your counterparts, and the Bengals should have paid up, but they haven't, and that's something that they're going to have to figure out now over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think the look of the Commanders, like they were reportedly in when we were talking about the possibility of Garrett getting traded, they were mentioned there too. So that's
Mm.
a situation that makes sense. But I honestly think I agree with you that what they did with T Higgins, it not only shows that they only care about the offensive side of the ball, it shows how much of basically a say that Joe Burrow has in this team. He's basically running the office in what he wants them to do. And like I know for a fact that he's telling them if they didn't pay Jamar and T Higgins this season, then he's gone. Like, or he'll allow his contract to run down. There's no other way that they make those two decisions, given how cheap they are over the last number of years, that they actually go and pay these two guys now. But it's something that doesn't make sense then, that the rest of the leagues just the rest of the teams in the league just wouldn't have done that. And I think there's a reason why teams only pay a top receiver and then you can plug and play as you go along. To tag him and
Yeah.
not trade him was absolutely ridiculous because that's the perfect thing that they should have done. And that's when, like you said, they could have got more capital in. But now they're stuck with this situation that if they did really want to pay Hendrickson now, they're going to have to backload the contract, which again, they've put themselves in that situation. And again, another good team would do that. Like the likes of the Eagles would have no issue in backloading a contract when they know the cap is going to rise again and they'll face it down the road. But the Bengals aren't that type of team and they always allow things to build up. They have a tendency to allow players to walk thinking they're going to build things with rookies. It doesn't always work like that and they can't even handle the rookies that have come in the door, which by the way, trading or signing Shamar Stewart wouldn't even solve this issue because while he is an edge rusher, he barely gets any sacks. So he's the one to apply the pressure, and then Hendrickson is your closer on the other side. So they would be perfect together, but neither of them have signed at the moment. So it's a very, yeah,
I think
I don't
Green
know.
Bay would be a good shout for him. Sorry, not to cut you off. I think I was kind of looking at it today in terms of what teams, if you were to put Hendrickson on a different team, just for example, if you were to do a trade, where would he suit best? Obviously, there's like the unrealistic ones like Philadelphia. I don't think that would ever come to fruition. They have too many people on their front seven or on their front line that you have to trade someone, right? But the one team I was very interested in looking at was the Green Bay Packers. So again, a lot the scheme fits aren't really important now because a lot of defenses now they will run a base four, they will run a 4-3 with two edges and an all tackle and a I suppose a defensive tackle kind of as a pass rusher. But they have the pieces there that you could just slot Hendrickson in. I think Rashad Gary and Henderson would be a very good pin and pull option there. Gary is your more of your burst off the edge. Henderson is power. It would be a great complement, and then you have great linebackers there. You could rush four similar to what the Eagles did in the Super Bowl. Rush four, someone will get home, drop seven into coverage, and it would be a fantastic defense because they have a secondary that's savage. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
familiar with their linebacking core, but if they're keeping Jair Alexander, and they have Keyshawn Nixon, and then you have Xavier McKinney as your kind of
yeah,
your center field safety who's kind of just roaming around, kind of ball hawking around the place. That would be a team that I would be interested to see because they would have the picks as well. They could make a
yeah.
move there, so that would be the team I would love them to go to. Commanders would be nice, but Green Bay would that would be a really good move for Green Bay just to kind of set them over the edge in what is a really competitive NFC North. It would set them apart, I think.
Yeah, I think it works. The fact that you have McKinney there as well, because he can fill in a lot of different roles necessary in the DB slot. Like how many interceptions he had last year, roaming around at safety. Like he can help out on your deeper end if needed. So you can do go that way about it. But the only thing with Green Bay is they never do things like this. They never trade for a big name. Really, they always like to grow their own talent. I know they did sign McKinney, but that's in free agency, and I can't remember the last time they've made a trade. They do like to bring in their own guys in the draft. Often they like the homegrown idea. That's commonly a thing that they do. So I don't know if I could see it happening, but it does make a lot of sense. Um, Shane, any more thoughts on this Hendrickson situation before we wrap up?
No, I agree with Tomas. Like, I think they should pay him, but they probably won't, and he will end up getting traded, and they are going to regret it for quite a while after that as well. Like the money that they've given to Burrow, Chase, and T. Higgins, it's absolutely outrageous. It's the bones of 500 million they've given the three of them. Sorry, given between the three of them. And if you're doing that to three players, then you really are leaving yourself in a hole to try and build a squad around the rest of them that can actually do anything. Like those three lads aren't winning Super Bowls in Cincinnati, they're just getting money and they're walking out. And
Yeah.
I think they're in big, big trouble for the next while.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they've really left themselves in a pretty bad position here, and they haven't handled it well at all. But that's it for our NFL chat for this week. Appreciate Tomas coming on and contributing. It was great to hear from you, and we hope to hear from you again soon. We'll plug all your social media in the links if anyone wants to give you a follow and see what you have coming up. So thanks again, Tomas, and we'll chat to you again soon. We'll move on to Gun Chance. So Shane, you're officially the winner. We have one more week left, but you've already done it. So you're 9 points up, one week left. So congratulations, you're our season one Gun Chance winner. We'll have to come up with like next season before we started. We'll have to come up with like a prize for the end of the year.
Yeah,
But yeah, how does it feel? How does it feel to get to the dizzying heights of 9 points lead with one week left?
I think I had 3 weeks in a row where I had or yeah, I think I had 3 weeks in a row where I had a two and then two 5 pointers. And other than that, I've been absolutely appalling. So I think we both need to up our game for season two because
Yeah.
neither of us have done anything to write home about. If people were backing our tips, then they're probably after losing their mortgages and their houses over the last couple of weeks. So I think we need to do better for next season.
Yeah, definitely. Next season, we need to take pride in it and actually track um, each one. If we put on, say, five on each individual pick, how much
Yeah,
would we come out with at the end of the season? Because you see, if you do that as an accumulator, you're fucked because you had three 5 pointers and I hadn't one. So, yeah, but anyway, I still picked for this week. Let's just go with it, see if I can finally get a 5 pointer.
perfect.
So I went with Palace to beat Liverpool. That's 5-1. Liverpool are 19-50. I just thought they're still on a good run. They might want to end the season nicely, and Liverpool haven't showed up in a good few weeks, so that could be one. Second one, then I've gone with Spurs to beat Brighton at home. So that they're 3-1. Brighton are 3-4. I know Spurs haven't done a tap in the league all year, but I'm sure they'll have a lot of adrenaline after winning the final. A game at home in front of the fans will be great for them. I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll put in maximum effort there. And then the last one I've gone with the Pacers to win again in game two against the Knicks. So that's on Friday night at 1:10 a.m. 2-1 to the Pacers, and the Knicks are 20-49. So that's my three picks.
I only have one different to you. I have Spurs to beat Brighton, I have the Pacers to beat the Knicks, and I have Fulham to beat Man City.
Okay.
City are 4-7, Fulham are 9-2. I think City, I know they beat Bournemouth, and I think they have to win to get Champions League.
Mm,
But I'm just not as convinced about them as some other people are now. I know they're on a really good run in the league, but I think if Fulham
mm.
can put their heads together and kind of if Fulham
Make
have
an
a chance
effort.
to deal with Crystal, yeah, exactly. If Fulham just make an effort against them, then I don't see why they can't beat them and kind of ruin their season as well. And I think they might want to do that as well because City have just annoyed a lot of people over the last couple of years. So I just have Fulham to beat Man City. Fulham are
Yeah,
9-2, City are 4-7.
yeah. Like you said, I think like City have to win, but they had to win against Palace too, and they didn't. So I
Yeah,
think there's every reason to doubt them. I don't think they're really proven too much yet. But yeah, that's our last week's one. Let's see if we can get any more 5 pointers on the board to wrap it up. So moving into the NBA, then our last sports topic, we're gonna touch on both of the two conference final series. Ones I suppose that I don't know if many people suspected it would go this way. I think you had this prediction for the Western Finals in
yeah.
your bracket. Although it was a different route to get here, you had the final two teams correct. So fair play on that. But none of us, and I don't think anyone had Knicks versus Pacers on the other side. So currently, we have the Thunder 1-0 up. Game two will be on tonight, so you guys will know what the score is in game two by the time you listen to this. But we'll still break down game one and what we think going forward. And then the Knicks are losing 1-0 to the Pacers after an unbelievable game last night, probably the best game of the playoffs so far.
Yeah,
So we'll start with Thunder and Timberwolves. What did you make of game one?
I like obviously, and I really did think the Thunder were going to win, but I couldn't believe how easy they found it again. They just kind of kept rolling. They rolled over the Nuggets in Game 7, and they've come in there last night and rolled over the Timberwolves. Like the Timberwolves not even getting 90 points is
Yeah.
outrageous with the talent they have on the floor. The
Hmm.
Thunder just kept them at arm's length for the whole duration of the game. Really, the Thunder's last two quarters they scored 70 points in the second half.
Hmm.
Like that's just outrageous in comparison to 40 for the Timberwolves. And if you're doing that, then you don't have a hope of really touching anyone in the playoff
Yeah.
season. If you're giving up 70 points and only scoring 40 in a second half.
No, I
And
agree with you.
Shea is just incredible.
So good. I think he showed what he's all about there. I know some people are going on about this whole flopping thing, and although he did flop a couple of times, I wanted to point out an interesting stat that amongst MVPs, he's ranked 27th in the number of free throws that he had in the season. So he's not just a foul baiter. He led the league in field goal attempts with 21.8 per game. So he does a lot more than take free throws.
Yeah,
So I want to put that narrative out there. Although he does flop, sometimes, and he does get calls that other players don't. There is contact there most of the time, and that's on the refs to figure out what to do there. That's not on him. So I think, yeah, some players don't get as much of a whistle because they're more physical. Like people pointing to Jokic, but Jokic did a good bit of flopping in that series, and
he
because
did
he
big
thought
time.
he
Yeah,
needed to start doing it, and the way he acts with other players, like he literally elbows people in the face, does all sorts because he's big and strong. And then when they go back to him in the same physicality kind of way with like Caruso, people are like, "Oh, Caruso had to foul him because he's so small." Blah blah blah. But he defended him very well, and Jokic could have been called for multiple fouls on him too. And they're both just grappling with each other, whereas Shea doesn't really do that. So I think that's probably why he gets more calls, in my opinion. But
yeah.
anyway,
Just one thing I would say as well. Like last night wasn't his best shooting game, and he still got 31 points. So he was
yeah,
0 of 4 from three, and he was 10 of 27 field goals.
hmm,
And like I know he still comes out with 31 points. Imagine if he gets back to what we know he can do. Like he could easily have put up 40 or 50 points last night if he was on top form. So
yeah,
when he's fit and firing again, because Joe, they had a really long 7 game series against Nuggets. So when he gets kind of
exactly.
back to game 3 or game 4, Like I don't see how the Timberwolves are going to be able to put a glove on him because if he's shooting 31 when he's only half arson, imagine what he's
Yeah.
going to be like when he's fully on it again and everyone around him. Like again, their bench depth last night.
Oh
Sorry,
my
I keep
God.
saying last night.
Yeah, a
Their
couple
bench
of
depth
nights
just
back.
stands up every single time, and
Yeah.
they have the biggest bench in the NBA, and
And
it's
they're all
incredible.
good.
Like
They're all
yeah,
capable of playing in the
it's
playoffs.
absolutely yeah, it's outrageous what they're able to do. Like they can bring off Shea and bring in like Williams or Alex Caruso, Wiggins. Like they have so many options they can bring in that are just
Hmm.
point scorers,
It's
and
crazy that
it's
Williams came on as well after basically being in the cabinet during the Nuggets series. He didn't play at
yeah,
all. And then they just dust him off. And
and he
he
comes
comes
on
in and
with
has,
8 points.
yeah, 100% from the field, plus
Yeah.
19, plus minus. Like,
Oh,
it's
it's just it
crazy
was
stuff.
silly. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, and Alex
Yeah.
Caruso was 3 from 3 from three as
Yeah.
well. Like, Joe, they were pulling points out of absolutely everywhere, and it's
And he
very
didn't
hard to
have to do
deal.
as much as he did defensively against the
No,
Timberwolves. So that was
not
a
at all.
nice thing
No,
for him too. Even though he was leading the defense when he was on the court, he didn't have to do the same thing because it's obviously a different matchup. So that was nice for him too once he came onto the field, onto the court. Um, and as well, like I think the biggest thing is the amount of steals that they got. So like, look for OKC, you had Shea with 3 steals, J Dub with 5.
yeah,
Then there's also 2 for Lou Dort. Across the board, like they had 31 fast break points. That's the third time I think they've done it in the playoffs, which is the most any team has ever done it in one playoffs run to have 30 or more fast break points. The Wolves had 0 fast break points.
yeah.
So that's the winning and losing of this game, like turning the ball over and not being able to then counteract that by turning the other team over and getting points off it.
But the thing as well was like when Anthony Edwards plus minus was minus 23 when he wasn't on the court, and he wasn't playing well last night. Only 18 points and a minus
Mm,
23 on the plus minus. Like you're not going to win
yeah,
a single thing. Like if you need him. And you really need him to be shooting 30 or 40 points every game, then
yeah,
you don't have a hope like against a team like against the Thunder because they'll just shut him down and say, "Oh, get someone else to score 30 points." Like they only have one other
yeah,
person capable of doing it, and it's Randall. Like no one else
yeah,
hit 10 points last night. Outside of outside of Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. Like
yeah.
that's not good enough for a team that are in a conference final.
Especially with how many days rest they had. Like they had way
Yeah,
more rest than the Thunder, and they still looked lethargic. And I thought that Ant would have a lot more assists because I thought the
big
Thunder
time.
would defend him physically and trap him a lot. And I thought he'd make good decisions like he did in the previous 2 series, but he didn't. He only had 3 assists and turned the
Nine
ball over four
rebounds. Yeah,
times. Yeah, it wasn't good enough. He needs to be a lot better if they're going to stand a chance here. But to be honest, I think for me, I'm going to go with OKC winning in 5. I think the
yeah,
Thunder
I
will
have the
get one
same.
at
Yeah.
home. But yeah, closing it out at home, then back in Oklahoma in game 5. That's so
Yeah,
we're both going with that.
I have the Thunder in five as well.
Nice
I
one.
think they'll go 3-0
Yeah,
and then they'll give one up and then they'll just say, okay, that's enough fun now. Let's just get it done here.
yeah. I think sometimes that can happen as well, where you're on the road in game 4 and the team is like, okay, they don't put everything into that game because they know they can close it out with
Yeah.
home court advantage. But then let's move on to the Knicks and Pacers. So, God, last night, what
Oh,
did you make of that game?
dude, I don't even know where to start. Even when I was trying, like I watched it this morning. I didn't stay up last night. I was sorry, not this morning.
Yeah,
I watched it this afternoon, and the shot that Halliburton makes to force it to overtime. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Like the way he's driving to the line and says, "No," change his mind,
not.
runs back out, then puts up a jumper with his foot on the line, and then the way it bounces out and goes in, and then he thinks he's won it with a 3-pointer. It was
Yeah,
just like
oh,
it
it's
summed up the whole game.
crazy.
It was absolutely outrageous. Like Neesmith towards the end of
Oh my
quarter
God.
four. Like, where did that come from? He doesn't have that in him. I didn't know
No.
didn't know he was like he doesn't do that. Like it's like he scored 30 points. His average for the season was 12. Like
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was absolutely ridiculous. The
Oh
Knicks should
my
have had it
God.
wrapped up. The Knicks had so many chances to wrap that up. They shouldn't have needed
Yeah.
overtime. And
Those
then
big
losing
free
it in
throw
overtime.
misses as well down the
Yeah.
stretch are massive. I think Ananobi missed one. Brunson missed one and Cat missed one. They're
Can't
all
miss one, yeah.
massive. Yeah, really massive.
Like if, for
So
Cat and Brunson to score 78 points between them, and
yeah,
then they come out and lose in. Geez, I think I couldn't believe the way they fell apart in that fourth quarter.
yeah. I don't know. Like Cat was so good last night. I
Yeah,
thought in general in the game, and I thought Brunson, he had 43 points, but it was interesting that sometimes he seemed like he was making the wrong decision, and I thought at the end he did get bailed out a few times. Like he had 7 turnovers. I feel like he could have had 10, and a couple
yeah,
of times, like especially that inbounds pass. I don't know what he was doing there. They were lucky to get away with that one. But like you mentioned, Neesmith, like 30 points in the game. Just some of the stats off this. Six threes in the fourth quarter was the most
yeah.
ever by any player in the playoffs since the play-by-play era. So that was also a record that he set for the Pacers with 8 threes in a playoff game. This is a team that had Reggie Miller before, and he set that record. Another one then, most points in a 5 minute span in the second half of a playoff game since 96-97. He's leading it with 20 points in a 5 minute span. That started on the 43 minute, 25 second 43.25 minute mark, and then it ended just before the end of regulation.
Just
That's
ridiculous.
just, and like you said, it's not exactly off a guy that everyone was expecting. Like to go 8 for 9 from three, absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
Is there
and
anybody else
even
that stood out to you?
I on both teams, like as you were saying there, I thought Carolyn T. Towns stood out, Jalen Brunson stood out, but Mikhail Bridges stood out for the wrong reason. He was 50% from free throw, and so you really can't do that especially in the
No, I
conference
think he had
finals.
50% from the field.
Field goal, sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
he was zero, yeah, yes, eight of 16.
I wouldn't even be too concerned with that one myself. In terms of his shooting, it would be to his playmaking that really was for me. He just still can't handle the ball. So as soon as Brunson sits, like nobody is able to handle the ball.
Yeah, like yeah, but Mikhail Bridges was minus 15 and the plus minus as well, which
Hmm.
is always is going to be a big issue as well.
Yeah,
Other than him, I thought Towns was brilliant. I really did. And on the other side, Halliburton is obviously he's just outrageous. He's so good. And this Pacers
yeah,
team look really, really good with him.
yeah.
He's
His
just he's a
passing,
really good fit.
he just dictates everything in the game. And not to mention on that 3 point that was his foot on the line, whatever. Like
Yeah,
when he's driving to the basket there was a slowed down clip of it the NBA put up, and you can clearly see that like Bridges fouls him like twice on that, and he still regathers the ball after it's knocked out of his hands, steps back and hits that shot. It's just crazy. And I think already we were talking about they were like they had two of only three like 7 point comebacks in the last minute of a game in this playoffs ever. Like they had two of the three that have ever happened, and it was both in this playoffs. Now
yeah.
teams were 0 and 970 in the playoffs over the last 27 years when trailing by 14 points with under 250 left. Tonight was the first win ever, and an even more outrageous one. Teams that trailed by 9 plus in the final minute of the fourth quarter of a playoff game were 0 and 1,414. So what they did is just absolutely unprecedented in this playoffs in general. These comebacks, you literally can't write them off. They've been so good.
And
I've
the
been
thing
so
is,
impressed with them.
you really you'd have to think that at some stage, it has to stop. It has to get to a point where they can't just keep making these ridiculous comebacks. But they're doing it. As you said, like that's their third time doing it now, and
Yeah,
that's it's like they as you said, you can never write them off. They're never out of anything,
getting
and
more
all of a
outrageous
sudden,
each time as
yeah,
well.
like it all of a sudden, Neesmith remembers how to shoot. Um, Halliburton just starts throwing up trees. I couldn't believe it again. Like when I saw the Knicks had such a lead, I was like, "Geez, I might just skip to the end here and see where I finish." And then I just kept watching. I was like, "Thank God I didn't skip to the end to see where I finish." Because
Yeah,
it's just what they're able to do coming into the stretch. It's like, oh, let's save all our energy in the first three quarters, and then the fourth quarter we'll just have a bit of fun. Then and do there's a bit of jeopardy on the line. We'll make a comeback.
yeah. I think
Ah,
they scored like I think they scored. I don't know. I think it was like what, 30 or something points, or maybe more in the last like 4 minutes of the game. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was something outrageous. And I think Halliburton taking 23 shots is not like him too. Usually he doesn't like to
Yeah.
take that many shots. So I think, again, that was good by the Knicks to force him off his game in that way. But he stepped up when he needed to do it. And I think now they're going to just push the pace even more. These Knicks players like 46 minutes for Bridges, 44 minutes for Hart, 42 minutes
Mm.
for Anunoby, and they don't have a deep rotation at all, not of players they can trust anyway. And I think that's going to catch up with them, especially when the Pacers can bring McConnell, Obi Toppin, Benedict Mathurin off the bench. Okay, Thomas Bryant as well, but they don't trust him that much. But
Yeah.
those three guys who are still fitting in perfectly to keep pushing that pace, I think they'll only push them further in the second game. And I could see them going up 2-0, the Pacers, to be honest, because they will really wear this Knicks team down and it will catch up to them. I see, although I don't like to say it, I can see another injury coming like last year because they just play way too many minutes all year. And it's so hard to keep that level up, especially against a team that plays as fast as the Pacers.
Yeah, so I do see him going 2-0 up as well. We both picked him in Gan chance, but I do still see the Knicks getting out of this series and getting into
Oh,
the NBA Finals.
okay. So
Um,
what's your final prediction?
Knicks in six.
Hmm. So you could see the Knicks going winning two on the road and then
Yeah,
closing it
and
out on the
then
road.
yeah, I think the thing is that we keep saying about these ridiculous comebacks. I do think they have to end at some stage. And the
Yeah.
way they played for most of that game last night was not a team that is going to go and kind of just walk another. It's like I don't see him walking a series, obviously, but I don't see him winning a series even again with the way like the conference finals are too competitive to be able to keep going so far down and turn around and coming back. And
Hmm.
it has to catch up to you at some point. The way it does in every sport, like there's no team capable of keep putting off comebacks like that. That you can just do
Yeah.
it four, five, six
Forest even this
times.
year, their
Yeah, exactly. It caught
tactics
up to him as well.
they kind
Like,
of
yeah,
caught up to them a little bit. So
yeah. I think it always catches up, and I think the Knicks will still end up in the finals.
I'm actually going with the Pacers. I was thinking if we did this episode before the game, I was going to pick the Pacers in six to close out at home. I'm still going to go with that. I do think, yeah, it could go either way, and I do agree that this can't keep up, but I don't think it will keep up is the thing because they've had these games where they've come back, but they've also dominated other games,
Yeah,
and I think they have the ability to dominate games, and I think they will, and I think the Knicks, they had two brilliant comebacks against the Celtics to be up 2-0, and then they showed their proper skill level in game three, and then when they closed it out as well. So I think, yeah, or game four it was, I think, and then when they closed it out or whatever order that went in. And I think that could happen again where the Pacers might have a comeback or two here, but I think there will be other games where they show their level. And I just think the depth and the minutes in the legs for the Knicks will catch up to them. So that's what I'm going with. But we've had a pretty long episode, so let's wrap up quickly then with the power rankings. Do you want to go first and give last week and go ahead with this week?
yeah, perfect. So last week I had Liverpool, Pacers, Knicks, Man City, OKC, and Newcastle. I've
Yeah.
changed it up quite a bit for this week now because a lot has happened in the last week since
Mm.
we were talking last. So Palace come in to mine and they go top.
Ooh,
I think
nice.
so was first trophy, and I thought they deserved this, so I put them in a top. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I've Tottenham in a second. I know they're
Jesus.
17th in the league, but if you're winning a European trophy, then you should be in with a shout of getting into anyone's power rankings. I have the Pacers in third, just because the comeback last night and the way they're playing, they're just brilliant. Man City are still in fourth, so they have four wins and a draw in their last five. The Thunder
Even after
stay
losing the
fifth.
cup, though.
Yeah, do you know what? I just didn't want to change everything at one go. It's very awkward to put the graphics together, so I'll try and keep some people in the same place. And then I have the Thunder in fifth. Just so that we've said enough about them. And then Villa are into sixth for me. No
Okay.
Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool have just they're on the beach. They're
Mm.
very not hot at the moment. So what's the point in having them in there? I know they won the league, but
Yeah.
Villa four wins in their last five, and I hope they get into the Champions League as well.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. It's a good list. So last week I had Pacers top, and then Timberwolves, Liverpool, OKC, Brentford, and City. So this week I've got OKC in first. Um, so I just think that the level to which they played in their last two games is so good. It showed what they've done all season, and that's just boosted them up to the top again for me. And then in second place, I've gone with Palace. So I think they deserve to be up high after what they did. And currently their form in the league has been really good. They haven't lost in a good 6 or 7 games in all competitions, so they're doing very well there. And then obviously getting their first trophy ever, they deserve to be high. I've got the Pacers then next up. They're in third. I thought what they did against the Cavs was excellent, and they followed up with just one of the best games I've ever seen last
Mhm.
night. So they're in third. Then in fourth, I've gone with Spurs. Kind of have to give them their props that they won a trophy, even though, yeah, it pains me to put them in there because they're just not powerful at all in terms of
Yeah.
what they've done this season. But yeah, they won a trophy, so they deserve to get in there at least for this week.
Yeah, you're a better
Then
man than me, yeah, because when Newcastle beat Liverpool, I left them out of it for the next year and a half before I would put them back into it. So
yeah.
you're a bigger man than I am.
So then after that, I went with the Knicks. I didn't want to drop them out because I thought they played very well against Boston in general, and they played well for most of that game last night, even though they did throw it away. So I think they deserve a spot in there. And then sixth is same as you. I've gone with Villa too because yeah, they only lost once in the league since the 28th of February, and they're only goal difference away from being in the Champions League. So I think
Yeah,
yeah, they do deserve a spot in there right now. It's kind of a last minute decision to put Spurs in. I was going to leave Liverpool in, but I think yeah, I was teetering on the fence with that one. But I think once you've said that you don't want to have them in there at all, if it's coming from you, then I think it's fair enough to leave them out for this week. But
100%, yeah.
yeah, that's where we'll leave it. So that's our two power rankings for the week. I hope you enjoyed the episode, lads. We will be back again next week for episode 20, a big milestone. Shane, throw it to you.
Thanks so much, lads. Just keep watching, listening, liking, subscribing, and we'll just keep bringing you the content that we love making. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
See you, lads.